Reading A Course in Miracles. This is chapter 14. Chapter 14 is called Teaching for Truth. And this is section 2 called The Happy Learner. The Holy Spirit needs a happy learner in whom his mission can be happily accomplished. You who are steadfastly devoted to misery must first recognize that you are miserable and not happy. The Holy Spirit cannot teach without this contrast, for you believe that misery is happiness. This has so confused you that you have undertaken to learn to do what you can never do, believing that unless you learn it, you will not be happy. You do not realize that the foundation on which this most peculiar learning goal depends means absolutely nothing. Yet it may still make sense to you. Have faith in nothing and you will find the, quote, treasure, unquote, that you seek. Yet you will add another burden to your already burdened mind. You will believe that nothing is of value and will value it. A little piece of glass, a speck of dust, a body, or a war are one to you. For if you value one thing made of nothing, you have believed that nothing can be precious and that you can learn how to make the untrue true. The Holy Spirit, seeing where you are but knowing you are elsewhere, begins his lesson in simplicity with the fundamental teaching that truth is true. This is the hardest lesson you will ever learn, and in the end, the only one. Simplicity is very difficult for twisted minds. Consider all the distortions you have made of nothing, all the strange forms and feelings and actions and reactions that you have woven out of it. Nothing is so alien to you as the simple truth, and nothing are you less inclined to listen to. The contrast between what is true and what is not is perfectly apparent, yet you do not see it. The simple and the obvious are not apparent to those who would make palaces and royal robes of nothing, believing they are kings with golden crowns because of them. All this the Holy Spirit sees and teaches simply that all this is not true. To those unhappy learners who would teach themselves nothing and delude themselves into believing that it is not nothing, the Holy Spirit says, with steadfast quietness, the truth is true. Nothing else matters. Nothing else is real, and everything beside it is not there. Let me make the one distinction for you that you cannot make, but need to learn. Your faith in nothing is deceiving you. Offer your faith to me, and I will place it gently in the holy place where it belongs. You will find no deception there, but only the simple truth. And you will love it because you will understand it. Like you, the Holy Spirit did not make truth. Like God, he knows it to be true. He brings the light of truth into the darkness and lets it shine on you. And as it shines, your brothers see it, and realizing that this light is not what you have made, they see in you more than you see. They will be happy learners of the lesson this light brings to them, because it teaches them release from nothing and from all the works of nothing. The heavy chains that seem to bind them to despair, they do not see as nothing until you bring the light to them. And then they see the chains have disappeared, and so they must have been nothing. And so you will see it with them. Because you taught them gladness and release, they will become your teachers in release and gladness. When you teach anyone that truth is true, you learn it with him. And so you learn that what seemed hardest was the easiest. Learn to be a happy learner. You will never learn how to make nothing everything. Yet see that this has been your goal and recognize how foolish it has been. Be glad it is undone, for when you look at it in simple honesty, it is undone. I said before, be not content with nothing, for you have believed that nothing could content you. It is not so. If you would be a happy learner, you must give everything you have learned to the Holy Spirit to be unlearned for you, and then begin to learn the joyous lessons that come quickly on the firm foundation that truth is true. For what is builded there is true, and built on truth. The universe of learning will open up before you in all its gracious simplicity. With truth before you, you will not look back. The happy learner meets the conditions of learning here as he meets the conditions of knowledge in the kingdom. All this lies in the Holy Spirit's plan to free you from the past and open up the way to freedom for you. For truth is true. What else could ever be or ever was? This simple lesson holds the key to the dark door that you believe is locked forever. You made this door of nothing, and beside it is nothing. The key is only the light that shines away the shapes and forms and fears of nothing. Accept this key to freedom from the hands of Christ who gives it to you, that you may join him in the holy task of bringing light. For like your brothers, you do not realize the light has come and freed you from the sleep of darkness. Behold your brothers in their freedom and learn of them how to be free of darkness. The light in you will waken them, and they will not leave you asleep. The vision of Christ is given the very instant that it is perceived. Where everything is clear, it is all holy. The quietness of its simplicity is so compelling that you will realize it is impossible to deny the simple truth. For there is nothing else. God is everywhere, and his Son is in him with everything. Can he sing the dirge of sorrow when this is true? Okay, here we are in this section. It's called the Happy Learner. It could also be called Only Truth is True, because how many times did Jesus repeat that in this little section? Probably at least 5, maybe 10 times. But you could ask, what is the truth that is true? Only truth is true. That doesn't make any sense. That's great. Only truth is true. That seems to be in philosophy, I believe it's called a tautology, which is like basically a meaningless statement. What is the truth that is true? Well, Jesus has already said, if Jesus hadn't already said what the truth is, then it wouldn't make sense, but he has said what the truth is, and the truth is the atonement, which is that separation from God is impossible. It never happened. We are not separate, and God is love. God is truth. God is the absolute and the only truth. And we are, in essence, that truth ourselves. Tat tvam asi, you are that thou art. You and the Father are one. We and the Father are one. We are one. We are all one together. There's some really interesting things here. Now, Jesus is saying in the Course, it starts the first miracle principle, there is no order of difficulty in miracles. So he says here, a little piece of glass, a speck of dust, a body or a war are one to you. For if you value one thing made of nothing, you have believed that nothing can be precious and that you can learn how to make the untrue true. So even the littlest thing that we value in this world, let alone the biggest thing, it's all the same. It's all part of the ego deception. It's part of this illusion. And we can't make any of it real in our mind to return back to our original natural state, our true state. So Jesus is still going, from the last section, he was talking about how the Holy Spirit cannot teach us directly. It has to be indirect. Because remember, there are two levels. There's level 1 and level 2. This has been pointed out before in the world of A Course in Miracles. I believe it comes from Ken Wapnick, the idea of level 1 and level 2. On level 1, only truth is true, right? Period. No compromise. There is only love. Fear does not exist. Ego does not exist. God is the only reality. God is love. That is the only reality. Nothing else is true. Nothing else truly exists. That's level 1. Level 2 is, that's true, but it's too much for most of us. We cannot, we need a more indirect approach, because it's like telling someone in a compromised position, like slamming them with the truth. Like, someone is in sick, really suffering from a debilitating illness, and you tell them, well, this is all in your mind. Sickness is a defense against the truth. That's one of the lessons. Sickness, that is not the way to teach someone something, because what that will do is that will make them basically hate you. And they won't listen, and they will be even worse probably as a result of that, slamming them with the truth, right? It's not kind. It's actually quite cruel when people do that. And we all have done that on some level or another, where we make light of someone else's suffering in the moment that they're feeling the suffering. So the Holy Spirit needs a more indirect way of doing it. So Jesus says here, the Holy Spirit, seeing where you are, but knowing you are elsewhere, begins his lesson in simplicity with the fundamental teaching that truth is true. This is the hardest lesson you will ever learn. And in the end, the only one. It's the only lesson. It's the hardest lesson, and it's the only lesson that any of us need to learn. No matter what we're doing in life, all the lessons that we learn in life, it all comes down to what Jesus is presenting here, because it's the only thing that will stand in the end. There is that idea that only truth will stand. Nothing else, everything else is leading to that truth. Nothing else matters except that truth. Simplicity is very difficult for twisted minds. Consider all the distortions you have made of nothing, all the strange forms and feelings and actions and reactions that you have woven out of it. Well, let me just say, at the end, Jesus seems to be quoting, not quoting, but referencing the story of the emperor has no clothes. The emperor's new clothes. It says, the simple and the obvious are not apparent to those who would make palaces and royal robes of nothing, believing they are kings with golden crowns because of them. The emperor is naked, right? The ego is really nothing, but thinks that it has the royal clothes. I believe that's a partial reference to that, right? There's also seems to be a reference to Plato's cave here, where Jesus says the heavy chains that seem to bind them, the heavy chains that seem to bind them to despair, they do not see as nothing until you bring the light to them. And then they see the chains have disappeared, and so they must have been nothing. That seems to be a reference to the Plato's cave, where people are in this cave watching the shadows on the wall of the fires that create shadows, and they think the shadows are real until someone is able to break free of the chains, and they're all chained to the wall or something like that. And then someone is able to get out of the cave, break the chains, get out of the cave, and goes out and sees the sun. And then seeing the sun realizes, wow, I was really living in illusion there. That was not reality. This is reality. And then he goes back to tell the people that are in the chains, that are still watching the shadows on the wall, tries to tell them, and they don't want to hear it. They want to kill this guy. I think that's the story. I might be that's a paraphrase. I might be embellishing it a little bit. What the original cave, it's called the cave allegory, Plato's cave allegory. But I think the point there is that the Holy Spirit, Jesus, also cannot present the truth in such a way that it beats you over the head. It can't be presented in a way that attacks. It can only be presented in a way that is like, here it is. That's why, Jesus is coming back. This time, Jesus is coming back in a book, right? He can't be crucified this time. You cannot crucify the book. You can throw the book against the wall. You can burn the book. And some have, I'm sure. But all the book is doing, you can try to kill the messenger, but the message stands. And the message really is a message of peace. And it is not, love is patient, love is kind. Love is not attacking and demanding and commanding. Love can only say, here it is. Here's the truth. And I have found this myself, and it is true. This is what Jesus, I did this journey myself. It is true. I can say 100% this is true. I offer it to you. You can accept it or you can reject it. I can only say that if you reject it, that will be temporary, because you will come around to it at some point. And you can come around to it now if you want. And you will enjoy the fruits of that, just as I do. You will be free. Let's see what else we could say about this. If you would be a happy learner, you must give everything you have learned to the Holy Spirit to be unlearned for you. So we are so stuck in the ego that it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult to let go. It's difficult to let go. It's difficult to have the faith and the trust in this message. And even though we may intellectually or with words assent to it, agree to it, when push comes to shove, love goes out the window. If you look at the reality of things, including in yourself, we give lip service to love all the time. And when push comes to shove, we almost inevitably get angry and upset, and we, again, love, we throw love away once again. And then begin to learn the joyous lessons that come quickly on the firm foundation that truth is true. So the foundation really is this atonement principle, and Jesus started the whole course with it. He started with this basic premise, the basic promise and premise, which is the peace of God. You can have the peace of God. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. This is yours. The peace of God is yours. This is the basic premise. Nothing unreal exists. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. The ego does not exist. The real cannot be threatened. Build everything on that foundation. That is the truth. And if you build everything on that foundation, you will have a solid foundation. If you build it on lies, on a lie, which is the separation idea, it will never come to fruition. It will never stand. It may stand for a brief period of time, but it will crumble. And so castles made of sand fall to the sea eventually. as Jimmy sang. He used to sing that one. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at that for now. It's 20 minutes. We're going to do the decision for guiltlessness. This is the next section of this chapter coming up soon. Thanks for listening. Om.